Happy day, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of My Thoughts. Once again, my thoughts are based on my life experience and the actual institutionalized study of sociology, social responsibility, and sustainable communities. Yes, I have an actual degree in this. These thoughts are based on and include the Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations, which the United States was one of the primary founders of. The Declaration, not just the United Nations. So this week we've had a lot of identity politics in the news, with more stuff about police allegedly targeting black people, the immigration issue across the southern border, and the Equality Act being pushed by the government, which adds language to the Civil Rights Act, including sexual identity and gender, which is allegedly touted as a great victory for trans people and the entire LGBTQ community. First, I want to say this. Nothing that I say is anti-LGBTQ in any way. What my issue is the poor use of the English language. There are people who will argue that the United States does not have a national language, therefore anyone can speak as they wish. Fine. I really do not care. And speaking Spanish at a Hispanic store is, to me, it's fun and honoring. Speaking in Korean to a Korean shopkeeper, to me, is honoring their individuality. However, if one uses the English language, then it needs to be used correctly. In the Civil Rights Act, there was language that specified any place that people are permitted to gather for events cannot discriminate on the basis of race. And there were people who argued that, well, maybe their church, and that got shot down very quickly because there is no religious doctrine of separation of races. However, by randomly inserting the word or sexual identity or gender identity, it now implies that any church or religious organization that conducts weddings must permit weddings by same-sex and transgender people. This has not gone to a court yet, but based on that language change, I got $1 says it will. That is in turn a violation of the First Amendment, freedom of religion. Some people interpret that as freedom from religion, saying that the government cannot respect a specific religion. What that actually means is that the government cannot identify one specific religion to be supported by the state. It further states that it will not prohibit anyone from the exercise of their religious beliefs as long as they do not interfere with the rights of others. Now, some could argue, well, Christianity would violate the laws of same-gender couples then. In a religious setting, that is not the same thing. The part I find awkward is that in that same instance, those type of people, will argue against Christianity, saying that it is horribly anti-LGBTQ and support Islamic extremists who blatantly murder LGBTQ people. Yeah, it's like, really? Are you just trying to pick on one group? Or are you really just not paying a damn bit of attention to what you're doing? So, expect that you will see further more of this. Now, issues at the southern border, people are claiming are racist and white supremacist because they want to keep out Hispanic people. That's actually not really the case. But okay, there may be people who do feel that way. The issue is that if I, being me, were to travel somewhere outside of the US, come back, test positive for COVID, I would be expected to go into quarantine. If a migrant comes across the southern border, and I find this one highly suspicious, what about the rest of the borders? But if they come across the southern border, they're just released even if they do test positive for COVID. It's like, have a nice day. And then immediately the social justice backlash was, oh, you think immigrants are filthy. No. And here's the more awkward part to that from a socially responsible perspective. Immigrants are at risk of disease spread. However, studies have shown that immigrants are most at risk of the population they enter. They are not a risk to, they are less of a risk to than they are a risk from. For people who suddenly question, what do you mean? Okay, you take one person. That one person may have a cold. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. They enter a population density of 10,000 other people. That one person's cold may affect 5 or 6 people. However, the diseases that group of 10,000 have already been dealing with and built immunities to are at a much larger dosage than anything that one migrant person is doing. So migrants are actually at risk of the group they are entering. In the case of COVID, hey, come on now. We have a global feckin' pandemic. They should at least hang out at a hotel-like facility and, wait out the positive results so that they can go on with their life and not allegedly die in the street. When Ellis Island was opened, there was a medical facility, and every person who entered through Ellis Island had to go through medical screening and quarantine. Some people, historians and social justice people, have argued that, well, that was back in the day of racism. Okay, if you're gonna claim that was in the days of racism, then why were these alleged white supremacists discriminating against Irish, Scottish, German, Polish, Italian, oh, maybe it's because there was a lot more to the technicalities. It was a lot more complicated. Human interaction is a lot more complicated than people want to let on. Now, the ridiculous part with people saying today, oh, well, it's because white America is a white supremacist organization. First, I would like to say that I really enjoyed the point made by a Australian YouTuber, Daisy Cousins. White supremacists and neo-members of the National Socialist Organization freely admit who they are and what they are affiliated with. They don't try to hide it. So if the majority of America, of white Americans, are denouncing white supremacy or racial division, then chances are they are not part of the problem. If, as someone, well, we'll use LeBron James's version, if, as he said, he's afraid every time he leaves the house because police are actively hunting down black people, if that were the case, the black population of America is roughly 13%. The white population is roughly 49%. 3-to-1 ratio. If white people and police were actively hunting this minority group, there would not be a minority group. And in the case of LeBron James, he is a professional basketball player. All someone has to do is pull up the NBA schedule and they know exactly where he's going to be at any given game day. Not a hard target. Therefore, one can safely conjecture that he is therefore not a target and is in point of fact talking trash. Now, back to the case of immigration. On any given day, there are roughly more Irish people in this country, Irish national citizens, in the United States illegally than in the entire population of the city of Dublin. Nobody talks about that. There are almost as many illegal migrants from the entire continent of Africa as there are from the tiny country of Ireland. Nobody talks about them. And awkwardly, when you bring up that subject, what gets brought back is the number of legal migrants from one specific country who all happen to have college degrees and are doctors or physicists. Okay, first thing, those people are arriving legally, then they are not in the category of people arriving illegally. If they happen to overstay their visa, then they get added to the group of approximately 20 million people in the country illegally. Earlier this week, it was argued that giving amnesty to people who are in the country illegally encourages more people to come illegally. I disagree. I disagree very emphatically. No migrant anywhere has been asked or answered that they came here because of amnesty had been offered at some previous time. Amnesty is not the point. Citizenship is not necessarily the point. It still amazes me the number of migrants that I have met, foreign nationals living in the U.S. legally, that have no interest in U.S. citizenship. They are living here as expatriates from their home countries, even if they don't plan on ever going back to their home country. So, no, amnesty is not what brings them here. What brings people here is the offer of hope. Our economy is one of the greatest economies on the planet. People have the ability to make money here. They have the ability to keep the money that they make. Yes, libertarians will argue taxation is theft. I do not disagree with this. Property tax is theft. If your property can be confiscated based on failure to pay, then yes, it is theft. Income tax, you're being taxed on the ability to use the government's financing, the federal banking system, the federally issued currency. So that, while it's not something I enjoy, is perfectly justified. People migrate here so that they can make money and they can keep money. Unlike countries where they may pay a reasonable amount of income tax and then have a cartel come along and shake them down for protection money that the police will not enforce. In countries where the U.S. gives millions of dollars in aid only to have corrupt government officials keep the money. Immigrants coming to this country, whether permanently or temporarily, are not a big problem. They need to be registered so that they can call the police without fear of retribution. That in no way breaks any form of moral or ethical code. With that thought, we'll wrap this up. Everybody have a great week.